I think learning the pitch is a start, but learning the problems is way more important. And as soon as you can articulate the customer's problems better than they can, they'll buy from you. There is a gap in people think I'm gonna hire smart people, train them, and then they'll be effective at sales. But at the end of the day, if it's a very technical product, you just need someone who understands the solution, problem and solution very well. If I were to rethink sales hiring, I would hire people who understand the buyer persona. One of the most common questions I get from people transitioning to founder-led sales is, how do you hire for your founding sales rep? So I just want to take a moment and walk you through 5 hiring mistakes that people make. One is
Hello. This is Michael Ocean. See you at SellMeThisPen. Today I'm super pumped because I have my good friend Ryan in on the show. So let's just share a little bit about his background. He sold for many large organizations, starting with Vivint, then IBM, then Oracle, then Shopify. Helped quite a few interesting startups like Superlink and Tempo Labs. He's known for running curated events for Toronto Tech community. I don't know anyone who basically doesn't know Ryan on that. And now he's a fractional head of sales for B2B SaaS companies, helping them transition from founder-led sales to something more repeatable and scalable. And today we're going to chat about how different size companies approach sales training. And since he got the background, I think the floor is yours, my friend. How are you doing?
For sure. It's good to be on the show. This is SellMeThisPen. I got my favorite pen here. It's a rollable. It's like a $10 pen, but I use it all the time. But it's great to be on the show. Thank you for a great introduction. I've worked both big tech sales, IBM, Oracle, Shopify, and then startups Unstoppable Domains, and then Superlink as sales hire number 1. And then now I work across many different startups and early stage sales companies, helping them with sales.
Awesome, man. Tell us about your journey. How did you end up in sales?
Yeah, well, the journey is basically, there's a story, and the story was published in Canada's national newspaper, the Globe and Mail. But basically, I was a second year student. I went to my mentors and said, hey, I like pitching. I like communication. I like meeting new people. What job should I do if I want to work in tech? And a lot of people pointed me in the direction of sales. I applied to IBM, high hopes, got completely rejected. Applied to Cisco, Microsoft, all the tech companies I want to work for. So I asked myself, what can I do to make myself so good that they cannot ignore me? And so I got a job in door-to-door sales. So I worked for Vivint. Vivint is a leading home security company. They one of the early company make those doorbell cameras before Google Nest. And I was a 100% commission salesperson, traveling salesman. We started in Nova Scotia, east coast of Canada. We made our way to Kingston, Ontario, then all the way to Kelowna in the west coast of Canada. So literally traveling salesman. And that's where I learned a lot of my sales fundamentals. Mark Cuban, Richard Branson, they started their careers in door-to-door sales. And now look how big they are, right? So that's basically how I broke into sales. During that time, I blogged about it the entire time. And then I released a video about my entire career journey from Vivint, door-to-door sales, to landing the sales internship at IBM the next year. And that story went viral. It was like 20,000 views in 10 hours. And then I sent it to newspapers and it got published when the school season came back in. So that's the story about how I broke into sales.
I love it. And you named Vivint. It's so interesting. Like so many great salespeople kind of started, not necessarily at Vivint. Vivint is one of those, but doing something that is to me the hardest, like door to door, go and talk to people directly. It's something that can really build that foundation for you. And I know they have a great such training program as well. And we want to get into that as well in a little bit.
I'm happy to share more about the Vivint sales training program. And we're getting at the beginning of the story, so I think it's great. We're going to go through the story of different sales training and how I grew to where I am today. Vivint is door-to-door sales. It's very transactional sales. You're in and out of a successful sale. You're in and out of the home in about 2 hours. So you learn everything from how to approach the door. So literally you knock on the door and you stand like this. You stand to the side. Because imagine you open the door, someone's like this in your face, right? So you stand to the side and be like, hey, I'm just talking to a few of the neighbors in the area. My name's Ryan. I'm from Vivint. So you actually have a name card so people know you're not a scammer. It looks official, right? Yeah, I'm just talking to a few neighbors in the area and we're all talking about this awesome home security system that we put in. Have you guys do you use an iPhone or Android? And see, I'm just running. I'm just bombarding them with information. I'm hitting them with questions that I already know the answers to. Do you use an iPhone or Android, by the way? Oh, iPhone, yeah. great. I hate those Android guys. Like some small joke. There's a lot of like stupid one-liners you learn. And then I just pull up a demo on the phone and be like, imagine you're coming home. You're just taking the groceries out of your car. You swipe like this and your door is automatically unlocked and your security system's turned off. This is what your neighbors are all really excited about. And they're like, oh shit. And I'm like, yeah, so look at your door right here, this door lock. Imagine this was a smart lock. Do you ever forget your keys? People always say, yeah, I know, right? I hate when I forget your keys. Imagine you never had to forget your keys again. So anyways, what I'm doing today, so then I basically go for the in-home pitch, which is like, what I'm doing for all the neighbors today, it's just giving a free assessment. And we're trying to find 3 homes that qualify for a free smart home upgrade. Give just 15 minutes and I'll like literally like go like this. So basically like, you can see the whole presentation. There's not much like discovery. It's more just all like emotional, excitement, playful, super assumptive. Like, yeah, I'll just come in for 15 minutes and I'll just leave you with a free quote. Like, you know, they're like, give them the chicken nod. So anyways, basically, I worked under the top rep in Canada. His name was Ken Yim, and I'll give him a shout out. He taught me so much great sales training. We'd get together in the sales office every morning and we would practice this script. And this script is just based on what Ken would do being the number one rep. So training was just finding the number one rep and then copying them. We would have slight variations in styles. Some people would talk slower, faster, or more emotional. Some people would be really good on the jokes. But generally speaking, we all followed the same script. The number one junior rep in the company, he basically told me, I asked him for advice on how he got there. He's like, just try and live and breathe Ken. He's the number one rep, just everything he does, from the way he shakes the hand, the smiles, the way he pulls out the phone for the demo, just copy him. So again, we would get up every day. We would just do role play after role play after role play, and then we'd be in a group. And then Ken would give feedback, and the other reps would give feedback as well.
That's amazing. The first thing I wanted to say is it's really second nature to you. You worked there years back. When was it? Like 10
Oh,
years?
bro, it was three months in summer 2016. So yeah, it's like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
The script is just ingrained in my head because I literally did it every day. And we would do about 40 to 50 doors a day, and then about 10% of them would be in-home presentations. So when you're in the home, they teach you things like, oh, build trust. Like, don't just talk about Vivint, like talk about yourself, talk about your family, talk about your travels. Anything you see in the home that you can relate to. Oh, there's a soccer trophy. Just talk to them about it, right? So a lot of strong sales fundamentals, a lot of very transactional sales, very emotional, and a lot of tricks that don't work, in my opinion, in the B2B enterprise world. But for, with something that you'd buy quickly, you need to make a 5-minute friend. A lot of these tricks work very well.
I love it. Look, of course, most of our audience are in B2B enterprise space, but there is a big learning in what you just shared. If the training is good, you find that, let's say, high performing rep that was recommended, and we were getting to the official training program at these bigger companies, it sticks with you. You never forget it because you kind of like emotionally be so vested in doing good. And I think that comes with, companies or products that are more, faster paced and you need to get the job done. It kind of like stick with you forever for the rest of your career. Of course, you go through changes, you interact with new, personas and ICPs, and you shape it so that it resonates with your, target audience in your industry. But I believe like this experience would stay with you forever. So speaking of that, from IBM to startups, I'm sure you've seen sales training at companies of radically different sizes. What are the 3 biggest differences in how enterprise versus startup sales training is structured, if you will? And can you give us some specific examples from your own experience?
I can share how sales training was done at IBM, and I think that'll help answer this question.
Yeah.
So IBM is known for its very famous sales training program. It's been around for over 50 years. It's called Global Sales School. And basically every sales rep since Thomas Watson, like the founder of IBM more than 80 years ago, like has gone through this program. It's a 6-month program with essentially 12 case studies, like mock sales calls that you prepare for in different scenarios. And the basic gist of it is you're given a sales case. The case is quite similar to what you do on the job, like selling a certain product. It's like an updated product. And then you sit in for a 15-minute sales call with 2 other students, and then you rotate. And so you see how everyone pitches, and then you give each other feedback. And I think it was very effective because it did simulate the real sales environment very well. At the end of the day, the best way to learn is to actually do it. And the people who would role play are former executives who have sold and worked with customers of that type. I think a lot of the value in the sales training as well was just finding your style. Both at Vivint and at IBM, like small company, big company, they made us do like disc assessment, which is like, the blue, red, yellow, or green. And I learned that I'm very analytical. And I should use that to my advantage. Like I almost always come into sales calls with an informational advantage over the client, some insight or something. But other people don't do that, right? They can come with great charm, or they can come with great, problem solving or other things. So to dig into the question, what's the difference between a big company and a small company? Like small companies can't afford that amount of training, because when I actually look at like the time to ramp or time to productivity, like if you spend 6 months of training, that's already half a year's of salary. So it's like 30 grand. And then I had like 30 grand to travel. So it was already like 60 grand investment. But then my quota would be like 700K or something. So I guess it kind of added up revenue wise, but they probably wouldn't break even into year two. So what I would say is that smaller companies should focus on training in a more cost efficient way and faster way. The faster the time you can get them to the phone, the better. The thing about IBM is that they have a brand to protect, right? We would be managing existing accounts and new accounts. So like, I called on A&W Canada as like my first customer after training. You don't want to put someone with no training to go and talk to A&W, right? So, startups have less to lose. So if they mess up on the calls, it's all good. Just move quickly.
All right, that's awesome. So let's just go back to IBM. You mentioned something really interesting. You get on a call, you learn by doing it, which is the best way to do it, right? Did they focus on giving you a lot of material as well, or you were not that much focus on that?
It's a great question. So firstly, I would say role plays are the best way to learn sales training. And it's been the same across every organization I've worked for. What you actually do in the role play at Vivint, I was literally given a script that anybody could learn and just do it. At IBM, they gave us frameworks. And again, it's like nailed in my head. Okay. Every call is an opening, engage, and a close. In the opening, you have time check, set the agenda. What's the objective of the call? Thank them for their time, right? And then do a self-introduction. Self-introduction is a personal value proposition, business value proposition, and then get into discovery. So you can control your opening, but you cannot control the engage, and you cannot control the close. So they would really emphasize, like, make sure your opening is like crisp. Let me give an example openings. Like previously, like my name is Ryan, like I'm a sales professional here at IBM. Previously, I worked in door-to-door sales, and I can tell you it's the hardest job I ever did. So I know if we work together, just know I'm going to work very hard to make our client relationship a success. And then, so personal value statement, and then business value statement. IBM is a global leader, and da-da-da-da. So what this means for you is this, right? I heard people say like, I'm a competitive swimmer, or like I can speak multiple languages. So this is how it adds value to you. But very, very good framework for opening a sales call.
I love it. Like my experience was a little bit different. Getting on board at selling Microsoft products, it was so heavy on content. So for 3 weeks straight, you have your cubicle, this big PC in front of you. You sit down and watch these modules and do the test, and that was the worst experience ever. And I didn't get much value from it. But to your
Yes.
point, things started to change when we actually started practicing. So doing these role plays back and forth, screw things up and do it again, get some feedback, do it again. And over time, they started gaining confidence. Although we didn't know everything about all the products we were selling, and it was really technical, but the practice portion helped us at least gain the confidence to go on field and start experimenting. But to your point, the disadvantage of what we were doing, because we didn't have enough information about our buyer persona, we were not familiar with it, we screwed up a lot of calls. So that comes with a cost, not only short term, but also your brand as a company. Now, for startups, you said yes, there's no budget and you can make a lot of mistakes, and that's totally fine at this stage. And I agree with you 100%. But just imagine you're a founder-led company and you want to hire your first sales rep, and we both did founding sales jobs, so I'm just curious
Yes.
to learn about your experience on that.
Yeah. So I would do shadowing. I would do founder leads the sale, founder leads the call, the rep shadows. eventually they reverse shadow. So the rep then leads the call. Maybe they do the opening, but not the engage in the close. And eventually they take over the 3 steps of the call. I think shadowing is a very effective way to train your new reps, especially if you're just one to one. Like if you have a team, you can't have that much time.
Yeah.
But secondly, just recording sales calls. So going through my sales journey as well, the first time I got to see Gong was when I was at Shopify, and it made my onboarding like 10 times faster. At IBM, I flew to the US for training. Like, why didn't they just record the sales calls of the best reps and have me listen to them? Right? Their methods are kind of, 30, 40 years old. They're effective, but they're just not up to date. So I'd say shadowing and listening to recorded sales calls of the best reps is the best way to understand the pitch.
I love it. I love it. Can you share us an example that you actually went to one of your very first calls working with startups with your founder? How did you feel? I want to understand like the feeling, if you can remember, because it seems like you remember everything from 10 years ago. So I let myself ask these questions.
Sales
So
stories.
yeah, so how did you feel like being in that situation? And in terms of like progression from, just doing the intro to getting to actually, closing, how long did it take? And could it be better or worse? So I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah. So when I think about Unstoppable Domains, so I joined as employee number 5. There was no sales operations, no sales enablement, just COO and 5 AEs. So when I first started, it was difficult because there was no best rep. There was no best way to pitch. So I just had to make it up by myself. I did feel uncertain, but I had to rely on the sales training I had on the past to kind of figure it out. And then progression wise, I think it was about 2 months before I closed my first deal. And I had to build a lot of sales collateral to be able to get the first deal closed. Like the pitch deck, like there was no really pitch deck. There was no proposal template. I had to build it and so
Mhm.
forth.
Makes sense. And I think one of the reasons why small startups rely on people with a little bit more experience, especially for founding sales position, is the fact that you can bring a lot of value to the organization from your past. So I had this experience walking through the training program. I can probably teach other A's and maybe I move to management position or sales enablement position. And also part of building that playbook is just kind of like you work hand in hand with the founders to build that initial playbook. So I think there's extreme value in that as well. So when it comes to ongoing training and coaching, what are the top 2 things that enterprise companies do better than startups that startups can actually copy? And also, what startups do better that enterprise companies can actually copy from them?
Hmm. One thing I think startups do well is that the reps can hear directly from the founder. And in the example client I work with today, the founder is just a genius in this space, and that's why they founded the company. Nobody can articulate the value prop better than them. So just being on the call or even listening to the calls, I learn way faster than when I was at a big company, learning from someone who's quote unquote just a sales trainer. They haven't been in the field for
Hmm.
some time, though they are good at the fundamentals. Um, and what I think big companies do better is probably just resourcing, time, tooling. Again, Gong was like an absolute game changer, and I haven't had it at like the last 3, 4 orgs. It's probably pretty expensive, $50, $100 per seat or something. These are some things that I think would be different.
Makes sense, and I appreciate you sharing. And I think based on what you're saying, having that structure can help against startups, but I don't know how it's even possible for an early stage, founder to really build that structure and a better framework for the reps. If they have sales background, that's a different story. But many founders are, with product background or they're technical. So maybe there are best practices they can copy from, larger organizations, at least just have a basic framework. So when they get a rep, the rep does not freak out. What's going on here? I have to figure everything out myself. And
Yeah.
for larger organization, so maybe getting them closer to not necessarily exec team, but people who's been there and done that rather than just like I'm running a training session based on textbook.
Yes. Um, one thing I'd like to continue this conversation on is from IBM to Oracle, because both are well-renowned global organizations with training. And at IBM, as much fundamental training I got, I'm not ashamed to admit I wasn't that good at pitching the product, because after you go through training, then you're assigned a product area, and then you have to learn how to pitch a whole new product, right? And I was selling cloud infrastructure, and I've never bought cloud infrastructure. I'm not a CTO at a large company that has to provision and learn about speeds and feeds and compute and CPUs and GPUs and stuff like that. So it was pretty challenging for me to learn how to pitch this. Now, when I left IBM to join Oracle, Oracle was like hyper focused on selling cloud. And so as soon as I joined, they're like, let me show you the Oracle sales pitch. Okay. Oracle Cloud was started by Clay McGorrick, who was an executive at AWS who built EC2. He left AWS to join Oracle to work directly with Larry Ellison. And that's how Oracle Cloud was born. So we've actually taken all the lessons from the market leader, AWS, and built them within Oracle Cloud. Oracle Cloud is 30% cheaper than AWS for the same price for performance. So send us your AWS bill, and you'll see we'll show you a pilot, exactly the same infrastructure, but you're going to reduce your cost by 30%. Do you want to take a call? It's a pretty compelling story, right? At IBM, I learned all these fundamentals, but they didn't actually teach me how do you sell IBM Cloud. It was hard as hell to sell because it's like fifth or sixth place, right? So what I will share from my time at Oracle is, again, I was under one of the best reps, which helped a lot. But even with that pitch, so that's a pretty good pitch. So I would get the call. I still didn't deeply understand the customer's problems. And it's not who best understands the product, it's who best understands the customer that lands the deal. And so when it got to technical questions like, okay, like, are you compatible? Like, I don't know, like, I just memorized this really good pitch to open, right? And so, yeah, lessons that I have now that I don't have in my early stage career is like, it's not about learning. I think learning the pitch is a start, but learning the problems is way more important. And as soon as you can articulate the customer's problems better than they can, they'll buy from you.
That is true. That is true. I love that story. So how did you actually manage to stay in the company, Oracle? Well, you learned the pitch, you know it by heart right now, but maybe you struggle a little bit with technical questions because you were not in the shoes of your buyer persona.
Yes. So one thing I did is I shadowed the best rep like crazy, and I just had to ask him call after call, like, what is this? What is this? Like, why does a CTO want to use Redshift or this database? Like, that was like my gap. But to actually clean up the story, I ended up leaving fairly quickly to go to Shopify because I realized I'm not passionate about selling cloud. I was at IBM. It's a great company. I was selling cloud. Then I said, okay, let me try it at another company. And actually 3 months later, I was like, waking up the moment, like, I'm not passionate about selling cloud. I'm going to go do e-com because it's something that I feel like is closer to me. Left my manager a good recommendation, helped them find a new rep and everything to leave the relationship a good term. But that's something you can learn on your sales journey as well, like what you're passionate about selling.
Absolutely. Look, one of the tricks I used to use selling Office 365 in Azure, I was not technical and I have no idea. I'm a kid in my early 20s. Like, how should I even speak with the CTO? So it's a lazy trick, I would say. I built a really good relationship with the engineering team.
Yes.
As ridiculous as it sounds,
Exactly.
when I had a real opportunity, I literally got them on a call, and I was annoying kid, because sometimes I was running, please get on the call. I want to close it. And I mean, I wouldn't suggest this. It's best to really understand your buyer personas, and maybe some of the things, again, even larger organization can learn. Apparently, even Oracle was really, focus on the pitch rather than really upskilling reps about the buyer persona they're interacting with. So I think we still see this gap even at large enterprises today.
I agree with you. My sales engineer has saved my ass many times at many jobs. Coincidentally, my brother is also a sales engineer, so I love hearing his stories because he's like, sometimes I get on a call and the AE can't even pitch, and I have to do it for them. I'm like, man. Yeah, he's like, AEs don't do anything, man. They just say, hey, introduce everyone. Everyone okay? All right, start the demo. He does the demo. At the end, okay, any next steps? I'm like, bro, I did the entire presentation for you, right? So it's funny. A good sales engineer is a very, very valuable thing. Agreed. One thing I would say is recorded calls can solve this problem. And with one of my clients today, I have all of the call recordings. It's a very technical tool, and I can listen to how he talks about deep technical things with clients. They go back and forth. I have the notes and I can pull them. So that makes a really big difference. And now that I look back on it, like IBM and Oracle got to step up, like because if they just recorded their calls, my training would have been so much easier.
That's true. Like sometimes maybe they have some security challenges. Okay, we cannot record calls for
Mm.
financial services. That might be it. But what I'm trying to say is, when companies are late to adopting new technology, there is some cost that comes with it. And to your point, getting a rep from day one to, let's say, the time that they're really ready to go on field and start selling effectively, that comes with a big cost. And I'm still surprised why some companies are not actually investing or looking for even internal tools to help reps do this better and get the buyer persona perspective faster. Do you believe your reps burn leads practicing on client calls? When it comes to giving them one-on-one coaching sessions, just don't have the bandwidth, so you get rid of them altogether? Or maybe you notice that your team spends a lot of time on non-revenue tasks like taking notes, updating CRM, or drafting emails. These are the exact challenges we solve for other revenue leaders like yourself. With SellMeThisPen AI Coach, you can offer your reps role-play sessions at scale while automating one-on-one coaching sessions based on your best practices and methodology. Also, AI will take care of all their non-revenue tasks, like note-taking, CRM updates, draft the email for them, so they can focus on constant improvement while you're focusing on one thing and one thing only: revenue growth. If you're interested in learning more about the clients we are working with or use cases that might be beneficial to you, check us out at SellMeThisPen.ai. I see a new trend that everybody's like super focused on understanding buyer personas and focusing on the big business problem, which might be a necessity, especially like selling in B2B SaaS. But I was chatting with another guest the other day, and they're selling for large telcos, right? And everything they do is absolutely technical. So when they hire people, they focus on people with technical backgrounds, maybe over a decade. So that's a necessity, just to have this background and understanding about the technology they're selling, so they can be successful. And I'm still like surprised why some of these like bigger companies take this risk and get junior reps with no sales background, with the hope of them being able to really articulate the message to a technical buyer. So how can they change the situation, do you think?
Yeah, there is a gap in people think I'm gonna hire smart people, train them, and then they'll be effective at sales. But at the end of the day, if it's a very technical product, you just need someone who understands the solution, problem and solution very well. And maybe their sales skills are like a little bit lackluster. And that's actually fine, surprisingly. So advice that Y Combinator gives to their cohort, a lot, because YCom, it's almost always two developer founders that found some software company. They actually tell them to just demo the product, just show the product, because usually the product is better at selling than they are. Like just showing the product is a better way than giving some pitch.
Mm.
And I think that for market leader products that are very technical, that tends to be the case. I knew a guy that worked on the chemical hardware stuff, and he's like,
Mm.
basically, you put a chemical in the box, it can synthesize, it can get something out. I'm just like, just if you show up with a box and just show a scientist that, they're not going to need a pitch on, oh, well, here are the pain points of this. Like, they already know it themselves, and it's trustworthy, right? So yeah, I think that's a hard thing. Um, but if I were to rethink sales hiring, I would hire people who understand the buyer persona and can learn sales, as opposed to, oh, I was the number one AE at Salesforce, I can learn to sell anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not always the case. And another thing I'd say, that in founder led sales, if the founder builds a product selling to their own persona, they have a very big advantage. So being a former sales leader yourself, selling a sales tool, you already know everything that the buyer would say, and you know how to sell to them. But when a Y Combinator startup or Techstars, I see a lot, you go fundraise an AI thing, and then, oh, we're going to sell to restaurants. It's like, bro, you've never worked in a restaurant before. Like, you're going to have to do
That
a
is
lot of
true.
research and talk to a GM about staff turnover, about like inventory replenishment. Like, it's completely different space.
Yeah, I love it. So founder problem fit, if you will, just to understand
Yes,
deeply what's happening here, so you can communicate easier. Look,
very
my
important.
last question. Looking back at your journey again, IBM, Oracle, Shopify, and then startups. If you wanted to start over, which one would you choose?
This is a great question. I think that um, people that are hardworking will maximize the opportunity that is presented to them. And when I was at university, being in big tech was the biggest and greatest thing. I've never even heard about VC. In Toronto, we get exposure to VC. If I was an SF, I'd probably be working at a Y Combinator startup for like 4 or 5 years and hopefully exit or something like that. But I would say I have conviction that I know what I like and what I'm good at. And that's only because I tried multiple things. So no regrets there. But now I know myself, I'm a very entrepreneurial person. I don't belong at a big company because I want to just build everything myself or learn how to do it. So if I could, I probably would have focused like a mid-market or SMB that was like scaling. Like think about like Stripe 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I interviewed for Stripe after I left IBM. I didn't get it, but like if I started there, that company is just a complete rocket ship, right? Like the growth trajectory, you grow, you can only grow as fast as the company you're is growing. And IBM was actually a stagnating company that wasn't a market leader. So I could only grow so much when I was there. Like nobody's getting promoted to manager. Oracle was growing like this. My manager was 27. He was younger than me, but he killed it, right? So I guess my general advice is go to an organization that's growing quickly and you will grow with it. Sometimes that could be a big company, but more often it's going to be a smaller or mid-market company.
Interesting. Look, I appreciate you sharing this. Again, for our listeners, if you guys just getting started in sales, I would suggest the same thing because you learn so much with startups, and especially when they pass that product market phase and they're not in a death valley mode. This could be a very interesting journey just to learn about yourself, not only sales, but just learn about what you really want to do. And I would start again if I could with a startup.
But
Everything.
before I
Yeah.
break, can I
Yeah.
share screen and show one more thing related to sales
Yeah.
hiring?
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So one of the most common questions I get from people transitioning out of founder-led sales is, how do you hire for your founding sales rep? So I just want to take a moment and walk you through 5 hiring mistakes that people make. One is hiring someone that's too senior. So for example, if you hire a VP of sales who can only manage, but they don't know how to actually build and execute, I think that this is a common mistake. Someone says, oh, my first sales hire, let me hire a CRO. Doesn't work. Number 2 is hiring too junior. Hiring someone too junior would be like a new grad, but they require too much training to get started. Number 3 would be somebody that's not a company stage fit. So for example, someone who's a top rep at Salesforce, great sales organizations, but they never worked at a startup. So they're good at closing, but they're poor at lead generation or building sales material from ground zero. In other words, they can't operate without a BDR. I think this is a very common mistake founders make.
Yep.
Another one is not a fit in terms of sales cycle. So transactional sales versus enterprise sales is very different in life. And then lastly, someone inexperienced in your growth channel. Somebody really good at phone calls. Somebody really good at emails. Some people really good at LinkedIn. Some people really good at conference selling. But nobody's good at all of them. So whichever growth channel you choose, make sure to test the salesperson for that particular channel.
Amazing. Look, I appreciate you sharing this. I wanted to actually expand on it because I know you do fractional, head of sales work with startups right now. So can you walk us through step by step how you go about assessing, each startup when you want to help them with that transition? And how does that look like exactly? Like, are you helping them to hire someone, or you build a structure first?
Yes. So it begins with figuring out where they're at. So in B2B businesses, there's 2 types of CEOs. There's product-led CEOs and there's sales-led CEOs. A sales-led CEO doesn't need a sales hire for quite a bit of time. But a product-led CEO often needs one to help reach 1 mil ARR. And likewise, a sales-led needs a CTO or a good product person, right? So at the beginning, founders take care of all 3 sales stages. They take care of lead gen, selling, and account management. Would you generally agree with this?
100%.
Makes sense, right? Okay.
Yep.
So I propose that you transition by delegating one of these sales stages. So if you don't do outbound today, then hire someone to just take care of the lead gen. If you have a lot of inbound, like you're very PLG, you don't want to be on 20 sales calls a week. Just hire someone to take care of the inbound calls, which is selling. And eventually you should be able to train that person to take over both. So in my case, I work with founders on either one of these, as I could do either one. And then when it's time to transition over, I help them hire someone to take over that piece. But being able to identify like how to build lead gen, how to do lead gen, how to build the pitch deck to sell better, make it repeatable, sync with the CRM and so forth, is not something that a very junior person could do. So working with someone who's done it before and then can also help you hire the right person is basically what I offer as a service.
I love it. Look, guys, if you're watching this, I completely agree with Brian what Ryan shared. And when you get to the stage as you're growing, and very soon we start, most probably hiring, reps. If you don't want to lose your hair and get enough sleep, you really need to take care of this, as soon as you see some sign of, product market fit. All right. I
Exactly.
appreciate you sharing, man. Ryan, thank you very much for taking the time. Enjoyed the conversation. If someone wants to reach out to you, first and foremost, can they and how?
Yeah, for sure. I'm on LinkedIn every day, so just send me a personalized invite. I'm at inbox zero every day, so if you message me, you'll get a response.
Awesome.